Mathieu Kassovitz created an absolute masterpiece, Haine. He began writing the script in 1993 after the tragic death of Makome Ambole. He was shot while in police custody, and in 1995, Haine conquered French cinemas and questioned French society as a whole. Kassovitz had first-hand experience of the Parisian riots and life in the banlieue. Therefore, he was able to transfer the reality of violence, identity, and true sentiments into Haine. In Haine, we follow the trio made up of Vinz, Said, and Hubert. This trio highlights the multiculturalism of the banlieue. It is important to explore the significance of number 3. Each character represents the French motto of Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, which first appeared in the French Revolution, making a direct link to the Parisian riots depicted in Haine. Hubert represents the freedom, as he desperately wants to escape from the banlieue. Vinz represents equality, as he seeks to avenge Abdel, as well as craving to earn respect on the street. And finally, Said represents the brotherhood of the group, accompanying his friends through thick and thin. Building upon the trio, despite the film being released in 1995 and France winning the World Cup in 1998, there is still a clear link of the phrase Black, Blanc, Bleu, which originated from the World Cup win, as France was represented by all 3 ethnic groups of Black, White and North African, which mirrors the trio in Haine. Let's begin to explore the characters more closely, beginning with Vinz. Vinz is the white Jewish representative of the friendship group. He is very delusional and disconnected from reality. This is made clear by how influenced he is by American cinema. In the iconic mirror scene, Vinz draws inspiration from Robert De Niro's performance in Taxi Driver as Travis Bickle, who also was suffering from mental disorders, drawing a direct link to the character of Vinz. Another inspiration drawn from American cinema is the phrase Le monde est à vous, meaning that the world is yours, which has been drawn directly from Scarface. Scarface is the perfect film to depict Vinz's personality. He is a wannabe gangster who wants respect on the streets, which is reinforced by the conversation with Hubert while on the roof claiming how he wants to go to prison. Furthermore, expanding on the world is yours quote, when in Paris, Said graffitis over the quote and changes the vue to a nu, which now translates to the world is ours, which is a direct reflection to Vinz's character, thinking that he owns the banlieue, owns Paris, and the whole world. The reality is, Vinz is just a lost boy who is all talk and no action, and he hides this behind an American gangster stereotype. To reinforce that Vinz is all talk and no action, the scenes that best depict this are the scenes with the skinheads and when the trio is running from the riot police. Vinz has the opportunity to prove himself by killing either the skinhead or riot police officer, but he does not have the guts to kill on either occasion. This is further supported earlier in the film when the trio are walking through the banlieue and Vinz describes his heroism during the riots, but as soon as the police officers approach, Vinz is immediately silenced. Kassovitz also creates a motif of craziness around Vinz. Even when Vinz is introduced, he is dancing to some quirky music in the burnt down gym, already raising questions of sanity to the audience. This motif is upheld and repeated throughout the film. For example, with the previously mentioned mirror scene, the reappearing cow, and even small dialogues between the trio and supporting characters. While chatting up the girls at the art exhibition in Paris, the girls directly call Vinz crazy. Naturally, this can be interpreted in a colloquial manner, but in cinema, there are no accidents. Further reinforcing this motif is another conversation between the trio, where Vinz initiates a debate over which Looney Tunes character is the best, showing his lack of maturity and loony nature. Overall, Vinz is a young and troubled youth, trapped in the banlieue with no prospects for his life. He is simply becoming his environment, and Vincent Cassel has done an immaculate job in order to depict this. The polar opposite to Vinz is the character of Hubert. Hubert is much more level-headed, and in comparison to Vinz, he understands that there is no future in the banlieue. This is reinforced by the quote,
Il faut que je parte. faut que je parte d'ici.
Which translates to, I need to leave this place, which shows Hubert's desperation for a better life. This also exemplifies his maturity, creating sympathy within the audience as we begin to support Hubert and we root for him to leave the banlieue, but we soon find out that there is no escape. The relationship between Vinz and Hubert intrigues the viewers through its dynamic. This can clearly be depicted through the scene in the Parisian toilet, where Hubert delivers one of the most iconic quotes from the film.
Si t'étais allé à l'école, tu serais la haine attire. Attends, la haine attire, la haine.
Which translates to, if you went to school, you would know that hate breeds hate. Which not only shows us the gap in education between Vinz and Hubert, the education from American films and movies compared to actual school-based education, but more importantly, the intelligence and even wisdom of Hubert is radiated through this quote. Hubert, in comparison to Vinz, understands that actions have consequences. Moreover, building upon this quote, it directly exemplifies the situation of the banlieue. Riots lead to police intervention. Police intervention leads to more spite and hatred, leading to more riots, essentially creating a vicious cycle within the banlieue which becomes unescapable, even for the likes of Hubert, who did not choose this life, but instead the environment that he is surrounded by has given him no options or prospects, and forced him into delinquency, which is further supported by the burning down of his gym. Even the manner that Hubert is introduced in, is being opposed to promoting his boxing fight, depicts Hubert's potential that is simply destroyed by the banlieue. No matter how hard Hubert may try to escape the banlieue, it always sucks him in and engulfs him. This has been made evident when Hubert claimed that he stopped smoking, but his habit returns throughout the film, along with him making money through dealing drugs, proving that delinquency is the only option. However, Hubert's situation is perfectly summarized by the final scene, where he finds himself in a showdown with Notre Dame, which essentially ends his life. Regardless if he is killed or goes to prison, the banlieue destroys him. Kassovitz's use of symbolism may be subtle and require some deduction and inference, but once understood, it is incredible. Let's begin with the symbolism of the reappearing cow that only Vinz can see. The obvious explanation to this is that Vinz is simply losing his mind, but it is much more than that. As previously mentioned, Vinz is Jewish, and in the Torah, there is a mention of the red heifer, which is a cow that is sacrificed in order to purify an individual who has come in contact and been contaminated by a corpse. And this is exactly the case with Vinz. Vinz has come in contact with Abdel, his friend who has passed away, and as a result, Vinz became contaminated with hatred. The other interpretation may be that the cow is foreshadowing Vinz's own death. Regardless of interpretation, this symbolism is sublime. Although it may seem far-fetched, as previously stated, every component has a purpose and meaning in cinema. There are a few symbolic scenes within Haine, the first being the scene where the young boy tells the story of the hidden camera. The scene highlights the boredom of living in the banlieue, but more importantly, the scene is symbolic as it delivers the whole story of Haine in just this scene alone. Once the boy has finished telling his story, Vinz asks the boy, "And then?" To which the boy replies, "Well, that's it. That's the end." Vinz's question of what happens next is a symbol of Haine as a whole. After Vinz is killed, we as the viewers ask, "Et alors?" We ask ourselves what happens next. And this is also the question that Kassovitz is asking the French government and officials, asking them what they will do in response to the riots, and highlights the need for improvement of opportunities in the banlieues. Another symbolic scene that may have caused confusion is the story told by the old man in the Parisian toilet about Grunwalski. The story is of a man who was chasing after the train with his pants down. Every time he got close to the train, he would pull his pants up, resulting in the train leaving him behind, leaving him to freeze to death in the cold Siberian winter. The train is a metaphor for greater opportunities and a greater life, which Grunwalski wanted to catch, but what was stopping him was his pants falling down, his pants being metaphorical for his pride and beliefs. He wasn't willing to sacrifice his pride for a better life, which ultimately cost him his own life. This story relates directly to the banlieue and how all its residents want to keep their pants up. They want to keep their pride and be enemies with the police, meaning that they won't be able to catch the train to a better life. Grunwalski is also a perfect depiction of Vinz, who also wanted to keep his pants up, resulting in his death. Another beautiful use of symbolism by Kassovitz is near the end of the film. It is a beautiful cinematographic shot of Vinz with the Lecoute statue behind him. This is symbolic of Vinz's inability to listen to his friends, and more specifically Hubert. Vinz is so dogmatic and stubborn that he is unwilling to listen to advice that is beneficial to him. He is so consumed by hatred after Abdel's death that he is simply unable to listen, creating direct contrast with the statue behind him. His pride won't allow him to listen, making Vinz a direct epitome of the phrase, like talking to a brick wall. The most iconic quote of Haine is the quote to introduce and conclude the film in a cyclical structure.
C'est l'histoire d'un homme qui tombe d'un immeuble de 50 étages. Le mec, au fur et à mesure de sa chute, il se répète sans cesse pour se rassurer. Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. Jusqu'ici, tout va bien. Mais l'important, c'est pas la chute. C'est l'atterrissage.
It's a story of a man who fell from a 50-story building. On his way down, to reassure himself, he repeated to himself, "So far, so good. So far, so good. So far, so good." But what's important isn't the fall, it's how you land. This quote alone summarizes the plot of Haine. The inhabitants of the banlieue are all trapped. They're all falling like the man from the skyscraper. Their fate has already been determined. So no matter if things are fine now, there is no point in reassuring yourself when you're plummeting to an inevitable death. This is further amplified by the use of the ticking clock. Usually we have intervals of several hours, but in the final scene we only have a minute. And a minute is all it took to completely destroy the main characters, leading them to their landing. Haine was shot as a black and white film. There are numerous factors to why Kassovitz chose to do so. Black and white gives the film a sense of a documentary feel, which is amplified by the use of live footage from the riots as an introduction to the film. Another reason why I use black and white for Haine is to present the us versus them mentality, with the youth of the banlieue on one side and the police on the other. This is reinforced by the first scene where Saeed is directly opposite a police unit. Another reason is to present how Vinz views the world in black and white, also highlighting the pessimistic sentiment of living in the banlieue. Overall, the use of black and white makes the film a timeless piece of cinematography. Within Haine, Kassovitz uses a ticking clock when separating scenes. The presence of the clock throughout the film allows the audience to comprehend the timeline in which these events are taking place, as well as highlighting the lack of activities offered by the banlieue. As hours may pass, the protagonists haven't achieved much. The main function of the clock is to mimic the ticking of a bomb. It is more a timer rather than the clock in this regard, as the time is ticking down to the climax of the film, which is the final scene. The structure of Haine and how it is all captured is also done in a beautiful manner. Haine follows a cyclical structure where we begin with a close-up of Saeed opening his eyes and the film ends with Saeed closing his eyes. The cyclical structure represents the life in the banlieue. Despite the horrors that we endured throughout the journey following the protagonists, we are back right where we started. The camera work creates a contrast between the banlieue and Paris, where the banlieue is filmed through handheld camera work and long takes, giving it fluidity along with a documentary feel, resulting in a deeper sense of reality, which is reinforced through stereo audio. This is in contrast to the artificial Paris, which is presented through the eyes of the protagonists who belittle the capital. The audio shifts in Paris to a mono audio, which makes the city feel foreign and perhaps alien to the protagonists. La Haine is one of the greatest pieces of cinema in recent times. Every aspect of this film is a piece of art, from the characters that we become so attached to the incredible use of symbolism, all reinforced by unique cinematography. A synthesis of these factors is what makes La Haine a true masterpiece. La Haine makes you feel, La Haine makes you think. It is a hard-hitting film that burns into your mind for days after. And this is exactly why it is such a stunning piece of cinema.